I was folding cinnamon into the mixing bowl, the warm scent wrapping around me like a familiar blanket, when my phone lit up with the FedLink alert. Federal Record Update Clearance Modified. The timestamp felt off immediately. Not the usual year-end glitch. I wiped my hands on a towel and logged in from my kitchen island, the laptop screen casting a cool glow against the afternoon light filtering through the windows of my small townhouse in Northern Virginia. My name was gone, completely erased from the registered contract officer chain for the $529 million Department of Energy Renewable Infrastructure Framework. No notice. No memo. No dual signature trail. The override sat there under Marcus Hale's assistant's ID. The new VP of Operations who'd been brought in 6 months earlier with big promises about modernizing compliance. He probably thought the holiday slowdown would cover his tracks. Marcus had never struck me as the type to dig into the fine print. He preferred flashy presentations, vendor dinners, and LinkedIn posts about agile transformation. I'd seen his kind before in my years auditing federal contracts. They treated procedures like obstacles rather than safeguards. But those procedures had saved projects more times than I could count, including this one 4 years ago, when a major vendor onboarding nearly collapsed during a security review. That's when the board and DOE liaison embedded the continuity clause into the ratification package. Buried on page 92. Footnote 4 of the 2021 memo. Hudson, no. Wait. Voss Integrity LLC as permanent RCO with strict removal protocols requiring dual federal board countersignatures and a 60-day buffer. No unilateral drops. No quick swaps for a Harvard MBA favorite. I had insisted on it after watching a colleague get quietly pushed out during a reorg, leaving critical knowledge gaps that cost millions. I documented everything calmly. Pulled the action logs. Timestamped the unauthorized change. Exported the full authorization trail. Then I drafted one short email. Federal Continuity Clause breach noted. Immediate review required. Subject line precise. I BCC'd the DOE program liaison and attached the original 2021 appointment letter with its 3 signatures, including the one from the liaison who still remembered my name at conferences. 62 words. No drama. No accusations. Marcus hadn't replied to my earlier polite inquiry about workflow handoffs. That silence spoke volumes. He knew exactly what he was doing. He wanted to install his preferred candidate. Someone fresh and loyal, without the baggage of legacy knowledge. The funny part was that my cross-reference logs had rescued the entire onboarding module during that DOE penetration test. But Marcus read summaries, not binders. I sent the email and returned to my baking, measuring out sugar with steady hands. The kitchen smelled of vanilla and warmth, a stark contrast to the cold precision of federal compliance. Outside, bare trees lined the quiet street. Inside, I felt the familiar weight of responsibility settle. I wasn't angry in the loud way people expect. I was focused, surgical. 5 minutes later, his response arrived like a slap delivered with a smile. No subject. No greeting. Your clearance is inactive. Role vacated per operational review. Do not attempt further access to federal workflows. This is final. It read like he was dismissing an intern, not nullifying 3 federal signatures and a board vote. I reread it twice, noting the reckless wording, the absence of HR protocol or legal review. He assumed I was some dusty holdover who'd fade away quietly. He didn't know, or care, that the continuity clause had been forged after a 2020 incident that nearly voided the whole DOE agreement. It locked Voss Integrity LLC through January 31st annually unless a formal dual override was fully processed and timestamped in FedLink. I replied with 16 words, role cannot be vacated by single VP memo. Please reference Section 9B of the Federal Continuity Binder. BCC'd the Federal Program Manager again and attached the ratified letter.
Calm.
Factual. A reminder that jurisdiction isn't the same as confidence. Then I logged out and sipped my coffee, watching the steam rise. Access remained active. He hadn't even targeted the correct user ID properly. That's when I knew this had become personal for him. But I don't raise my voice. I build safeguards. Let him think he'd erase me. The audit logs would reveal a different reality. I toggled into the contract portal later that evening and activated the clause protections quietly. It took seconds. The dashboard shifted to manual confirmation only. Any modification, approval, or export now required my biometric or a notarized dual federal override, which didn't exist. The status bar turned red. From that moment, the $529 million framework was effectively paused by its own rules. I didn't announce anything. No Slack blasts. No Teams alerts. Just the slow accumulation of locked forms as people tried to work. I poured another cup and sat back. The logs populating with cold efficiency, cleared by Voss Integrity LLC. Federal override required. The silence was my strongest statement. The rest of the week passed in quiet preparation. I reviewed renewal triggers, cross-checked vendor lists, made sure nothing slipped. Marcus probably celebrated his clean slate internally. He had no idea he'd tripped a wire designed to protect against exactly this kind of internal arrogance. The clause wasn't vengeance. It was insurance. And now the entire operation was insured against his decisions. The email chain escalated faster than Marcus expected. His kill access, order to legal, forwarded with my short reply attached, hit the CEO's inbox within minutes. The reply came swiftly. He just attempted to vacate a federally locked appointment. Everything shifted in that single line. I archived the thread, stamped the logs, and uploaded the packet to the continuity archive. No gloating. Just documentation. The clause suspended all side authorizations the instant an improper removal occurred. No appeals. No grace period. It protected federal interests from precisely this brand of shortcut thinking. From my home office, I watched the dashboard. Vendors bounced. Compliance workflows errored. The red flags multiplied silently. I let it build. Marcus thought he was streamlining. Instead, he'd paralyzed progress. January 2nd arrived with lingering holiday decorations in the office hallways I no longer entered. Most employees returned expecting routine kickoff meetings. But federal modules refused to load. Onboarding queues for subcontractors flashed warnings. Dockets sat blank and inaccessible. Marcus stood in the main conference room pitching new vision and agile reinvention, but half the team refreshed dashboards fruitlessly. By the 11 a.m. sync, legal was already digging into back-end logs. He blamed tech delays publicly while privately emailing me to temporarily lift restrictions. Not asking what happened. Assuming I was still operational support. I ignored it. They had voided the agreement. The consequences were theirs to own. Day 2 brought louder frustration. Subcontractor logins failed entirely. Workflows returned cryptic errors. Marcus snapped at staff in hallways, demanding updates and calling urgent recalibrations. The truth was simple. You can't yank a federal linchpin and expect the machine to run smoothly. On day 3, I tuned into a public project dashboard out of habit. A live integration hub sync caught my attention. During a quiet moment, a junior analyst named Erica leaned into her mic. Why does the contract dashboard list Voss Integrity LLC as active RCO? The call went silent. Wild guesses flew. Cache data. Badge delays. But the smart ones stayed quiet. Voices tightened with realization. Someone upstream had messed with live protocols. And now smoke was rising. Marcus still believed it was an outage, not enforcement. I observed remotely, not as a threat, but as the fact they couldn't ignore. The clause enforced continuity through absence. No alarms. Just control returning to the safeguards they tried to erase. Marcus had underestimated the woman who wrote the fine print. By January 9th, audit day loomed. Staff wore their best business casual armor. Marcus arrived in his signature tight blazer and tapping smartwatch. The DHS contracts agent entered precisely at 7:42 a.m. Clipboard in hand. Government badge prominent. No smiles. Just efficient nods. They began with procurement logs and vendor trails. Marcus tried dominating. Tossing acronyms. The agent remained unimpressed. Checking items methodically. Then the pivot. Who authorized the RCO change before the continuity window closed? Oxygen seemed to vanish. Heads turned to Marcus. He smirked. I did. He was no longer active. He told everything. He hadn't even read far enough to know the officer was a woman. Dr. Elena Voss, founder of Voss Integrity, LLC. The agent handed a highlighted printout to corporate counsel, 41 CFR reference on RCO removal protocols requiring dual confirmation. 60-day buffer. No internal substitutions. Counsel's jaw tightened. He whispered, "Please tell me you didn't." Marcus's smirk faltered. The violation was clear. It froze activity, flagged trails, risked invalidating the framework. The agent requested full logs and an affidavit from the original RCO. That was the moment Marcus understood. He hadn't removed me. He'd activated full enforcement. The freeze hit officially at 3:14 p.m. A priority red agency alert. Temporary freeze initiated. All linked systems suspended pending RCO clarification. Marcus saw it mid-huddle and paled, bolting to call legal. His voice echoed. This is a misunderstanding. We need reinstatement. Legal's slack reply was merciless. Cannot reinstate. Role was not terminated properly. Reverts by law. The COO asked directly, "Did you read the continuity binder?" Silence answered. Meanwhile, in my kitchen, rosemary and garlic filled the air as dough rose. The audit ping confirmed the flip. The clause was a velvet-pinned grenade. Marcus had yanked instead of disarming safely. They clawed through records for 4 days. Every resolution. Memo. Backdoor nothing. The clause was airtight. Signed by 3 liaisons. Ratified unanimously. No reinterpretation possible. Marcus's assistant resigned quietly after her unauthorized credential flagged. The interim appointee got grayed-out forms everywhere. Action requires clearance from Voss Integrity, LLC. Marcus spun it as miscommunication in marathon meetings, even suggesting the clause was outdated. But one unread file in his inbox, continuity transfer requires Fed ID plus board resolution, sat for weeks. Scrolled past multiple times. The hover timestamp proved neglect. I never re-entered the building. The safeguards held without me. The call came after sunset. The CEO's voice. Weary. We'd like to restore your role officially until stabilized. I let silence linger. The clause functioned as designed. Obligations ended with the breach. He pressed. No one else has full knowledge. This transcends Marcus. I had prepared. Men like Marcus only value knowledge when it bites back. I declined return but referred Sophia Reyes. My trained successor, sharp, methodical, pre-cleared for backup under dual control. Voss Integrity remained RCO on paper, but actions now demanded dual signatures quarterly. With external counsel, they had tried erasure. Instead, they formalized my structure. Chaos dulled into grim procedure over weeks. Audit closures arrived in careful phrasing. The agency lifted the freeze only after the board signed a reinforced continuity plan far stricter than before. Systems returned in stages, no auto rollovers. Every credential dual validated. The new login banner stated plainly, Registered Contract Officer Voss Integrity LLC via Joint Board Federal Approval. Valid through January 31st, 2026. No internal override without countersignature. At a later procurement panel streamed publicly, the CEO smiled stiffly and called it an eye-opener on knowing your clauses. Marcus was absent. My name never surfaced. That's how you know the safeguards prevailed. I watched from my home office. Coffee in hand, logs quiet. Sophia managed with precision. Following protocols, I left. I never returned. No plaque. No luncheon. Real custodianship needs no applause, just unbreakable structure. The modernization Marcus championed never launched. The flashy updates were scrapped. The system stayed locked under legacy protections, untouched and intact. Staff learned the hard way. Shortcuts cost more than diligence. Months later, the operation ran smoother in some ways, burdened by new layers of validation. Trust had become notarized policy. Handshakes turned to signatures. The ordeal proved that true authority hides in footnotes until enforced. I continued my quiet life, baking, reviewing occasional referrals, ensuring Sophia had support. The clause survived people, outlasting ego and ambition. It protected the framework from internal folly. Watching the live stream that day, I reflected on the lingering question. In systems built on rules, does power belong to those who shout loudest or those who embed protections quietly? Marcus thought titles granted immunity. He learned jurisdiction demands respect for the invisible architecture holding everything together. The $529 million deal endured, stronger for the test. But the human cost lingered in strained relationships and lost momentum. I held no bitterness, only the satisfaction of precision prevailing. Control isn't volume. It's the signatures you place before anyone notices they're needed. The dough finished rising. I shaped it carefully, knowing some things only reveal their strength when challenged. The federal machinery moved forward, but now with my ghost guiding every step, not through presence, but through the enduring clause that refused to be erased. And in that, perhaps the real story wasn't about one VP's mistake, but about whether we value the quiet architects who prevent disasters before they begin.